Welcome back, Saints, to another episode of OPPO View. My name's Jayden, and here we are discussing our round 6 matchup against the Western Bulldogs this Thursday night under the lights of Marvel Stadium. First home game for quite some time, and we had a few away games, interstate games, so it's good to be back under the roof of Marvel, where we can really show our speed and our athleticism and get back to winning ways. In regards to our win-loss ratio this year. But let's dissect the Bulldogs. Let's see what they can do. They're a much different team to what we've seen previously. Still the same mantra, still the same philosophies. Again, they like to get in and under, get the contested ball. But then once that's done, it's all get it on the outside. Let's get our runners all going. They like to use their run, their speed, use the ball, by hands as they've been known for over the last couple of years, probably ever since their premiership year. To be exact, where they don't like kicking the ball all that much. They've got some really good ball users that can really deliver, and I'll touch on them in a second. But they do like to control it by hand, get it to their runners in Treloar, Bontempelli, Riley Sanders, who I'm going to touch on in a second. I think he's been a really good asset for them from the draft last year, and then getting into their forward attack, which is not performing at the moment. They are scoring some pretty big scores, but it's all small contributions around the ground. But from a forward perspective, I think there's something that can really elevate, and it's a real danger for us this Thursday night. They've got Norton, they've got Jamara Ugle-Hagan, they've got Sam Darcy, and who I think is one of the underrated small forwards in the comp, Cody Waitman, in regards to his performances. He's not a small forward, but he's not a big forward. He's a prototype medium that can, get the ground ball, be dangerous in the pockets, kick those fancy, flashy goals to ignite the crowd, but can also take a real strong mark, whether it's contested one-on-one or in the lead-up in the forward 50. His ability and sort of marking and then kicking for goal as well, I think, all round creates a really, really strong small forward type that, again, Stocker's going to have his work cut out. He had Shea Bolton in gather round, had Toby Green last week, which I thought he did an okay job. I thought Toby let him get away with a couple with some missed opportunities. But again, another tough ask with Cody Waitman this week, who's nearly almost their most important player. I'm going to say second because I think everyone knows who number one is. But I think if Waitman can perform and kick 3-4 goals, it then elevates and creates space for then Norton to kick a couple, Jamar to kick a couple, Sam Darcy to, chime in. And then they've got some midfielders that like to hit the scoreboard. Bont is one, Treloar likes, a goal or two. And then already you're sort of looking at a 10-11 goal score line. And then, from there you just need one or two extras to chime in and away you go. So they still, as I mentioned, they still like the uncontested game. They rank number 2 in the league for uncontested ball. They like it on the outside, which is, they love Marvel. They're much like us. They like to be on the outside. I think our contested work is a point of difference. I think Steele is absolutely been absolutely phenomenal this year. Back to All-Australian form for him at the moment. He's been absolutely immense. His clearance work, his, getting it out, getting to the likes of Hill, to Naz, to Sinks. Last week, Marshall, joined the club, especially late in the sort of game in the last quarter, where he was able to then really dominate the game and as we saw, we nearly took it away from the Giants from simply just a flick of the switch. Now, I'd love to see that for 3.5 quarters rather than a quarter. And I think that's something that they'll look at, trying to fix up this week. But Marshall and Steele are absolutely key. And I'll go through those in the matchups in a second. A couple of players I do want to highlight for the Dogs who I think can be a little bit of a point of difference for them. Riley Sanders, as I mentioned at the start, drafted in the draft last year. I think it was pick 6, if I remember correctly. His work has been, I think he was probably the most ready player out of the draft body-wise for that inside mid role where he can actually, use his size, use his speed. He's got some real great IQ. I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't drop a little bit further where we could have maybe snagged him up. But seeing his work, and I know he had a little bit of a tiff last week, being subbed out, but he'll be better for that. And I think he's someone that can really elevate their game. I've already mentioned Cody Waitman, who's really important to their structure. Baku Karmas is another one. Started as a forward for the Dogs, has gone down back and been an absolute revelation for them, helping out Jones because they do have a relatively small defensive lineup. And I think we noticed that last year in round 2 where we were able to get a hold of them. I think our pressure that game was absolutely insane for the 4 quarters. And that's what we need to do again this week. But Barker Karmas averages nearly 7 intercept possessions per game as a key defender. His intercept marking is absolutely a strength of his. Nearly 4 intercept marks per game. And those little things are all going to be key to stopping our forward line. And our forward line's been absolutely appalling at the moment. To be perfectly frank with you, I think our forward structure is really missing. The way we're setting up doesn't look like there's certain positions that are comfortable with certain players. They're a little bit lost. They're getting in each other's ways. They're clogging the forward 50 up too much. There's no possibilities for lead up marks. And there's no front of center as well. I know Liam Henry's out. He's a couple of weeks away, but we still got Higgins, still got Butler, maybe even Collard this week. That's the role of a small forward, to be front and center each time, and they're just not doing it. So if Karmas and Jones can actually get a hold on that and take some intercept marks and really slow the play down and stop those lead-up forwards, whether it be Membry, whether it be Sharman, Caminiti, King, who's a question mark for this week, it's not going to matter. If we allow them to take intercept possessions, much like Tom Stewart did in round 1, then we're going to be in a world of pain come Thursday night. So that's a key area that I look to sort of hone in on. 50-50 situation, worst case scenario, ball comes to ground, and then we allow our small forwards to attack and get a free kick. There's going to be holdings, there's going to be highs, all that's going to come through, and we're just going to get some easy goals. One player that is not playing for the Dogs, who's I think their third most important player behind the Bont and Cody Waitman, is Tom Liberatore. Now, I try not to focus too much on particular players, but he is a massive out for them. They already struggle within the contested game in regards to clearances and contested possessions and those sort of things. He's a massive part of that. He averages 26 touches per game. There's about 15 or 16 of them that are contested, which is huge. And he averages 10 clearances a game. Now, that's a massive, massive weight off our back. Something that we've struggled with already this year is our clearance work, especially centre clearances. And it's going to allow the likes of Steele, Ross, you chuck Sinks in there, you chuck Mateus, I think, is borderline selection calls at the moment. You chuck them in there, it's going to give them just a little bit more time, a little bit more strength and power to actually get it out to our ball users and get it first use to our forward line. So that's a key out for us this week, which I'll look to. I think we will look to maximise that within our midfield group. Steele, as I said, has had a phenomenal year. Some key matchups. I always like the Bulldogs because I feel like Steele and Bontempelli always like to go head-to-head. They've got like a little bit of a I'm better than you sort of mindset within each other. And I think it brings the best out of both of them. So I'd like that matchup, not from a tagging perspective, but just from a contested stoppage clearances and around the grounds. I think that's going to be a key matchup. As I mentioned, Karmas, I think he'll go to Tim Membry because he's too small to play on either Caminiti or King. But look for him to play that Wilkie role where he can float inside, grab some intercept possessions, and really transition the ball forward going forward. For the Dogs, who takes Norton, who takes Jamara? I'd probably put Cordy on Norton. I think Cordy's done a pretty decent job. I know there's a few calls for Dukes to come back, but I'd like to see Dukes actually earn the selection rather than just hoping for the best. And I think Cordy's actually held his own. Again, Hogan, we were awful for 3 quarters on Saturday, so I don't want to take too much into that. That wasn't from a defensive aspect. There's only so much the defense can do when we're getting smashed in the middle of the ground. So Cordy, I think, gets Norton, and Josh Battle to take Jamara Ugle-Hagan. I think he's got the athleticism, the bodywork, and I'd like his role to be able to go into the midfield on the weekend. Not from a permanent perspective, because he does. I don't think he has the tank, nor do we have the defenders to be able to cope with that. But at least that's an option when the game's getting away from us, that we do have that ability to chuck him in and really get some extra grunt in the middle. The last one is the ruck battle. I always like to touch on the ruck battle because I think that is nearly the most important matchup of the game. But Tim English hasn't had a great year. As I said, Bulldog supporters actually calling for him to be dropped this week, and for him to be sent to the twos and really it's a strong chance for Marshall to really, again, show to everyone what he can do. Had an amazing game last week, 16 clearances, 28 disposals. I think it might have been 16 marks and 10 clearances. But his work, especially in that last quarter where Kieran Briggs was out, he was able to actually bring the game back to our level and really control it. And, as we saw, nearly give us the 4 points. So, tough game this week against the Dogs. I don't like playing against them. I think they're always a team that's sort of our bogey team in a way. No matter where it is, they just seem to always get the upper hand. So it would be nice to get the Chocolates. I know we won last year. Be nice to get the Chocolates again, put some more pressure on them and Bevo, but also really start our season. We've been 2-3. We've lost by 13 points in total for the 3 games that we've lost. So it's not all the end of the world. I know a lot of people are starting to think, the season's wasted and those sort of things. The performances haven't been up to scratch and we're only just losing. That's the positive I take out of it. The switch is going to flick and everything's going to just fine-tune and be fine. So I think everyone get to the ground on Thursday night. Let's get around the boys. There's been some really good crowds interstate. Let's, finally back at home under Marvel to get back in there and get around the boys and give them the support. And as always, go Saints.